Even my first film, they didn't care. Like, they don't, but we put the effort in, but at least they allowed us to put the effort in.
Right.
But the distributor themselves, it's a numbers game for those guys, especially on the low end, the bottom feeders. They just try to grab as much stuff as possible and put it out, and then so if they put out 1,000 films and made $1,000 off of each one, that's all they care about. They don't care about the individual artist or trying to develop anything. And I said, then you'll become known for putting out crappy films. It'll
Yeah.
catch up to you at some point,
It's true.
or you could be like Blumhouse, where he took the opposite. Like, he's like, I'm going to try to put out good films, and I'm going to stick to the deals I make with people. I'm not going to hose people over because, on one of my on She's Crushed, I mean, they still owe me $25,000 on that film. They never paid me.
Ugh,
And they were just
gross.
like, yeah, well, sue us. Oh, but you can't.
Wow.
You got to take us to arbitration in California. And you know who pays for the arbitrator? We do.
Right.
So you're probably going to have a good, so even if you win, what are you going to get? Like, then you'll have a judgment against me that I'll never pay,
Mhm.
Right.
and then you realize, like, yeah, you're just not in control,
Right.
but that's a lot of money, especially to an independent filmmaker.
It's true.
And they're just like, oh, well, move it on. We got all these other projects we're going to keep doing. And so, you start to think, okay, well, these guys, they don't care about the craft, they don't care about the artist, and they will lie to you and they will cheat you, and then I'll never work with you again. But they don't care. They'll just, because they don't want to build a relationship and create something great, which is where a lot of those companies were. They were just not into building relationships or trying to build quality product. And I think that's how the Blumhouse blew up so big, is because he focused on letting these guys try to make the best projects possible. He gave them everything they needed, and he came through with the deals he said he was going to come through with.
Yeah.
And that ended up, so maybe not everything that they do is blowing things out of the water, but the artists had their say, and he supported them, and they delivered to everybody what they said they would. And
Man,
that, I
that
think,
gamble pays off. I mean, like, look, Get Out, Halloween, fuck. All you have to have is one or two of those hits like that. I mean,
yeah, all the what is it, Insidious, and like,
oh yeah.
I mean, like, and then he's just into everything because now he's got credibility with the world and the audience and the people who want to work with him.
But that's the thing. It's like that seems like the movie industry in general now. Like these days, it just seems like it's all by committee, and they don't give a shit about the art. And you have a few studios like Blumhouse and A24 where they're still they respect the filmmaker and the art, and they give them their freedom. But like for the most part, it seems like that's everywhere. They just want to shit out whatever it is and just grind it out, and they don't care. It's all by committee. It's like whatever the statistic shows makes the most money. That's what we'll do.
They commoditize it. And I don't know, I know that the guys I was dealing with on 47, they were, I mean, they didn't try to hide it. He was like, look, this is where we're at. Like, we're not even going to pay for you to ship the hard drive over to these guys, because that's $25.
Wow.
You're like, wow, really? And they're like, no, man, if you want to send it to them, fine, but we're done. They have hard lines that they draw, and they're like, this is how much, and we're going to do, and this is where it's at, and that's that, and this is how much time. And so, their goal was to, let me have 1 week, and then they took it and did the producer cut, which changed a lot of the stuff that we had done on the original. But I mean, a week to cut a film, I mean, really? I mean,
Yeah.
dude, you're just watching it. Like, you need to see it several times, and you need to see it with an audience and kind of get out of your own head, and you need some time with it. And plus, I did all the effects in the damn thing, except for the tornado at the very end. But like all the screen replacements and all those things,
Yeah.
that fell in my lap, because otherwise they wouldn't have done it.
Right.
And and then the other thing that kind of crushed us was the deal that they had. We were supposed to start production on a certain day, and then there was problems with the financing coming through, blah, 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 blah. And they kept going back and forth. So we didn't know if we were going to go into production. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, we're in production. We're going to go. And they said, we have to maintain the same deadlines that we had from the original. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't, it's like, but now we don't have any time to do pre-production.
Great.
Like, I've got like a week of pre-production to kind of put everything together and get this thing going. plus I had to rewrite the entire second half of the film because the other one was there was a lot in the original version. The girls got separated. One was in Austin and one was in Dallas. And there was a scenes in Austin, there was scenes in Dallas, and then they come together. And then we realized, they were like, that's, we can't have stuff on the road, highway shot, blah, blah, it's gonna be too expensive, it's too big, you guys it's too crazy. You need to tighten it up and try to put it all into the high school. So I had to rewrite that. So by the time that was all approved and written, now we're already going into production. So we didn't have time to storyboard it, to figure it out, or kind of think through some of the shots and some of the things, and it had a different opening, but the actor that I wanted to use for that opening, she had worked with the producer on something else and hated him and said that if he was involved, she wouldn't do it. And yeah, I know. And I was like, wonder why. Like, what could have? Because at this time I didn't know, right? Like I was still in the honeymoon phase. So I was like, oh, gee, I wonder, are you sure you're not overreacting? She's like, look, if he's involved, I'm sorry, I like you, but I can't be in this project at all. And so, and she had a pretty good name, and I was like, wow, goddamn, that was the whole point, so the one, I have a great relationship with an actor, and I can't even use him because of this asshole. So now, so then I had to rewrite the opening to try to make it work without them. And they were like, well, just have her come and don't tell her that he's involved. And I was like, oh yeah, that's probably going to end badly, and she'll just walk off set, and then she'll hate me, and we'll still not get it done.
Yeah. Then your relationship is ruined.
Exactly. So, and those are all the, but again, like, I don't want to say, oh, there's excuses, because every project, everything always has all these obstacles. It's just, that's just part of the job. Like, you have to figure it out and overcome. And sometimes in that process, you come up with something that's even better. But it was shocking to deal with. Like, you're like, wow, okay. So going forward, like, mentally now I understand you have to be prepared for that possibility and protect yourself mentally, because, this is something, think about it. This is the biggest budget I've had. This is like the big opportunity. You're thinking, okay, this is finally it. We're finally getting recognized. We've been grinding it out for 15 years, making low budget films, with no budget over $30,000. She's Crushed, I think it was like 18,000. So we're talking like $0 productions. My first film, I think it was 10,000. So suddenly now we've got a real budget and real things going, and we're so, and then you just get blindsided by something you just never even imagined would be a problem, because it hadn't been in the past. So all the things that you thought were issues, were all low budget related, but then you realize, oh, now there's a whole personality problem that you have to deal with, especially when somebody else is putting up a lot of money and it's their project, basically, in their mind. And they're like, oh, well, so they were constantly threatening to fire me, replace me, that constant. But I just ignored that, because it's like, okay, what are you really? Who are you going to get at this point? Like, are you going to direct it? Like, I know you guys are too lazy to want to do it yourself. So it's just constant threat. But it's just, for me, it didn't bother me so much, but I could see what it would do to the crew.
Right.
Like, they would just be like, well, why are we trying so hard? Because I feel like Patrick is getting beaten up on, and then the producers, who are probably going to profit the most, they're assholes. So why do I want to try really hard to help assholes?
Right.
And that, that starts to kind of to blend in. So it becomes harder to try to rally the troops and get people to go that extra mile, because they're just like, well, kind of demoralized by some of it. Then it does become, well, I'm just here for a paycheck.
Yeah.
Except for production designer and the script supervisor and the DP, the key grip. He was these guys that I knew before, and that really stuck through it. But you could see it was trying them. Like, they were caught in the middle too, because the producer would go to them and be like, hey man, what's he, is he fucking up? I want to try to do, working behind my back. And then they were like, hey man, he's coming in behind your back saying shit, this is weird. So it was weird for everybody. And so now moving forward, you're like, okay, I get it. Now I know how, what to look for, how to protect yourself, make sure that you can serve the project the best way possible. But the one thing I will say is, having the experience from the low budget world was I understood, like, it's not like getting in an argument with him and trying to win. Like if he was yelling at me, I'd be like, okay, sounds good. Um, so I'm going to go back and start filming, like
Right.
why argue? Like, I'm not going to win. It's an ego
Right.
thing at this point. My goal was to finish the project.
Right.
I was like, I'm just, whatever it takes to make it happen is what I'm going to focus on. And one of the actors would lose her mind and start screaming at me, "You're the worst fucking director. Everybody hates you. They think you're stupid. Nobody thinks you know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to reset.
Right.
And if you have any questions, talk to the first AD. He has all the answers for you too. So you should be good. And all right, we're going to go. It's like, why? I mean, I could get in the argument, try to win it, but it's not going to win.
Right.
My win is getting them to continue filming throughout the day and finishing the day.
Right.
So you kind of have to put the blinders on and say, why am I here? To finish this project. This project is the goal. So anything that services that ending is what I need to be focused on.
Right.
And these little ego battles, they're not gonna do anything for me. So those were really good life lessons that you kind of, but you learn that in the independent, when you're doing low budget films and everybody's, I mean, when you're doing really low budget films, the crew is always wanting to quit at any moment. They're like, I think this is fucked. Let's all just go home. You're like, no, guys, we can do it. We just got to finish this. We can do it. And they're like, I don't know, man. It started raining and the cops are here. And you're like, dude, but we can, let's just figure it out.
One more shot.
Yeah. But I was like, guys, it's all for naught if we don't get this last piece. Like, we need this piece to fix it. And they're like,
this is the big climax.
Yeah, this is our moment, man. This is why we're here. Which is crazy on 47 hours, like the main moment at the end, the big scene. So normally you have a 12-hour day. So if you start at 9, you get done at 9, right? Like that's just the thing. So it was 5 o'clock. I think it was maybe like 5:30. We were setting up, so we're shooting in December, so it's already dark, and for the final death scene in the movie. And then I'm told, oh, you've got 30 minutes. I was like, what do you mean I got 30 minutes? They're like, we got to be out here by 6. I'm like, what? And it was, yeah, the theater's opening up, and so we need to be out of here so they can bring in customers. I was like, wait, what? Like, oh, we got till 9. They're like, no. They decided they didn't want to. It was going to cost an extra $1,000, so we're having to get out of here by 6. I was like, we haven't even started shooting, and it's like the final scene of the movie, and it's like, what the fuck, really? And they're like, well, that's just it. Figure it out. So everybody's just like, whoa. And of course, the actors are all upset. And I was like, okay, well, yeah. So I said, look, go talk to the guys and see if we can, they don't officially open till 7. See if we can buy till 7. And anybody in the film business knows, like, 7 means probably 7:30 because I'm going to fucking drag my feet. So, what are they going to do? Right. But there was, but then we need to shoot there in the future. So part of it is like, well, we can't piss them off too bad because they could just say, well, then you guys can't come back.
Right.
So I was like, oh man, this is brutal. And then, but I'm like, you know what, dude, I've been down this path before. Let's just fucking go. Let's grind. Let's get it. Let's get a cool establishing and let's get in and shoot. And the actors I told because I knew it was going to be cold and I knew there was a lot of stuff. So when I wrote it, I made sure that they had coats for a lot of those scenes. They were going to be outdoors, especially with storms and rain and wetness and stuff. But of course, actors, they don't like wearing coats because, the scenes before they have to have the coats on, but it's not cold or whatever. So they want to take the coats off. And they're like, hey, can we take the coat off? I was like, I would keep the coat on because it's going to pay off in the future. You're like, oh, but so next thing you know, they're out there and they're not wearing the coat. And you're like, what the fuck? I thought, and then now we shot some stuff and they weren't wearing the coat. And then, and it was just an argument I didn't want to have. So you're just like, okay, fine. Don't wear the fucking coat. I'm trying to make my day. I've got a million other problems. Whether or not you're wearing a coat is really irrelevant to me. Cut to, it's 32 degrees. It's cold. It's wet. And the girl's just shivering like crazy. And I'm like, yeah, that's why, they're like, this is not right. You're letting this girl freeze. I'm like, I'm not letting anybody freeze. I told them I wrote in a coat, like I was planning for a coat, and I asked production to have heaters out here. They didn't show up. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. But, I tried to cover as best I could. The coats would have helped, yes, production should have had those space heaters out here, but we don't. So let's figure it out. So we shoot the scene, and then of course everybody, hates it. The editors were like, oh, the coverage is bad, blah blah blah, getting all these bad reports. And so they're like, we're gonna have to reshoot it. We think your scene, is wrong. So they were trying to work behind my back to come up with other scenes to shoot to fix the ending. And so then we got another day where we had the ending that we could reshoot it. We had some time at the end, and there was the blood going on the girl's face, and they, in the original cut, it really didn't play well. So I had special effects girl said, I was like, hey man, we need a good shot of the blood hitting the face. And I'm like, again, in my experience has been the more the better. Like I've never, seen an audience go, wow, that was a little too much blood. But I've heard a lot of like, there's not enough blood.
Yeah.
Like, so let's go. And and she was like, okay, I got it. I'm going to get it. I was like, are you sure? Because we get one take at this because we've got a thunderstorm coming in. The grips are telling me they're going to have to start pulling down gear because they don't want, if the lightning strikes a certain distance, it's too dangerous because of the generators. I was like, so we got to get this shot. Like, we don't have a second chance. And this is a second chance of the original version. And it's like, oh, I got it. I'm like, all right. So like, this is your one opportunity. You're like Eminem, right? Like you've got to make this happen. The blood has to hit her face just right. So we're like, yeah, I could do it. And then my production designer was like, well, I've got this tube, but I can run, we can push blood through. I was like, oh, I like that. And they're like, no, don't. She was like, don't do that. It won't look right. It'll look like vomit. And I was like, well, okay. But you're convincing me that you're going to be able to pull this off, right? She's like, yes, 100%. I was like, okay, because this production has been so fucked. Like, I need assurance. Yes, it's 100%. So cut to the scene, and she just completely misses.
Oh, of course.
With the blood. And you're like, oh, but a little bit got on her. I was like, okay, clean that up. We can make this work. So we go like 5 or 6 takes, missing every time. Maybe a little splash here, a little splash. Finally, the producer just grabbed the cup from her hand and just threw it in the girl's face and said, here, we got the, and so then I kind of had to digitally remove his hand, and then I augmented it. I did some digital like tracking and added more blood to the face and try to fix it and make it. But the best part was like, that was the only piece that we used of the original night's take that we shot where everybody was complaining and it was so miserable and everything. That was the best performance. Like that was the one that worked,
Of course.
and so we ended up using most of it anyway at the end of the day anyways. And I was like, so, everybody was panicking and running around like, but did we watch the footage and like decide? Like, I thought their performances were pretty strong in that one. She's shaking from the cold. It's like she's shaking from fear. It's,
There you go. Perfect.
So those are some of the behind the scenes thrills that you get with a big production. But to save $1,000, that's what the point of that story was, I guess. How it really ended up costing us more because then we had to do a bunch of other crap
Right.
to fit around it.
This is a great story. It really was. I'm really glad you came to talk to us. Not as awkward as I thought it would be, because I figure I tell somebody I don't care for their movie, but then of course, because it's me, I say, you should come on the podcast. Let's talk about how much I didn't care about your movie. So it went a lot better than expected.
Well, see, what I did is I hogged up all the talking so that I didn't allow you any opportunity to disclose why you didn't like the movie. See, I didn't have to answer for any of the shortcomings of the project. And I set up this pathetic little sad story about how hard production was. So now you're like, fuck, I want to tell him this. Fuck, but how do I break it to him without like destroying his soul? So
you were sitting and practicing that whole story for the last. Okay, I'll really push this one, and I'll make sure that they know just how terrible it was.
Yeah, there was these guys that came to one of the screenings. We did a secret screening at the Horror Fest in Dallas, and so these guys saw it. It wasn't the cut you saw. It was getting close. So it wasn't as bad as the released cut, but it was a better cut. And it was just an unannounced. Nobody knew what they were going to go see, so we could kind of get a raw. Unfortunately, there was a timing issue with the film before, so we really didn't get to talk to the audience to get any really good feedback. But a couple of the guys that were there have a podcast, and they did a review. And one of the, and they were talking about how the seats were uncomfortable in the screening, and maybe that had something to do with it. Right? So I thought it'd be hilarious to call them, and they have like a call-in line, right? And we could leave messages. So I called in with these crazy, like, I'm the director. How dare you, talk about those seats? You know how, it's uncomfortable being on a movie set, blah, 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 right? And they took it serious.
Oh.
And I was like, dude, every time I made the calls, and then I would act like that I ran out of time, and it would cut. And then I would do the thing where you call back and like, okay, where was I? And then I'd start the message again, and then it would cut off. And I was like, how do you not realize, like, of course, like, it's a joke, right? Like, I mean, I'm building up, and I keep getting crazier and crazier with every message, like, like the crazy girlfriend.
That's awesome.
And so then I see they on their podcast, and they're talking about, I didn't think the movie was bad. I said some stuff, and then the director just got like, he was just so offended, and he called us, and I felt endangered.
Oh my gosh, in danger.
I was like, man, nobody has a sense of humor anymore.
Oh,
like, it's a horror
come
movie.
on.
Come on. Like, what's better than a horror? Then you get like a crazy director horror.
Right?
Like, that should be gold, And then the other partner was like, I don't know. I thought it was a joke, but then you got so offended by it. Then I thought maybe it wasn't a joke. And I was like, oh my gosh, you got to calm down. Right?
Wow.
Lighten up. It's, we're all out here having fun.
Yeah, I always think so too. People are very serious. Like my little ridiculous little blurbs, I don't expect anybody to take that seriously. I do the synopsis, what it's about, decide if you want to watch it or not. And people will DM me, that movie was terrible. Like, why didn't you just say it was terrible? You know it was terrible. First of all, I didn't think it was terrible. I liked it. And secondly, I have this opinion that all the things you talked about that was a real pain to make the movie, we're putting in none of the effort. So I don't think it's a fair thing to be like, that's the worst movie I've ever seen. Because frankly, no. I got to go a long way to see a movie. Well, there was one recently, but it was not one of yours. So I am not one of those people who's like, oh my God, it's the worst movie in the world. Because what are we doing? We are opening our eyes in front of the movie. We're putting in no effort here. So I think it's pretty unfair for somebody to.
Well, part of it is it's like intent, right? Like, if I feel like their intent was good, then I'm always going to champion. Like, I don't, like, they can fail miserably,
Right.
but if their intent was there. But if they insulted me and I was like, you know what, they didn't care. They were just trying to, put something up and thought that nobody would, they didn't even care. Then that's when I get offended, like, I'm like, I feel like you are not giving any respect to the art form. Yeah. But if you try something glorious and it turns into this mess, I'm all for it. Like, this guy that I'd met, and he was a filmmaker, and he had he made this film, and he hired these Russian girls to be in it, and he went to China, got these costumes for them, and it was some kind of superhero thing, and he was in it, his friends were in it, and you could tell like this was like his passion to this project. And he thought, and he bought some like styrofoam boulders, and
Oh wow.
he had some army costumes for some, but it is so, it's a mess. Like, it's like the acting is not, it's like, I don't even know if they had lines, and they were very stilted. Like, let me ask my friend now, and and the audio is kind of sketchy at places, and they dubbed it. So where they dubbed it was even more ludicrous.
Those could be fun though.
Oh my God. And those Russian girls are just like, they're there. I mean, they're giving it 100%. Like, they've got thick accents. They don't, they're treating it like this is like a big production. They're not shitting on it at all. And they're just, it's a mess, and it's brilliant. And it's like, I was like, it's so much fun to watch. And I told him, I was like, dude, release this thing, put it out, like, put it on YouTube and just let it go.
Yeah.
But he was like, oh no, it's just like, I can do better. I'm going to try to fix it. I'm like, just enjoy it. Like, let people have the enjoyment of this project. Like, people will find this to be amazing. Oh, just the earnestness of it. And yeah, they're going to laugh at some of the stuff, but they're going to laugh in a kind way, because they know that you were trying, and they're going to appreciate that this was your passion project. Ultimately, they're going to be very supportive. And but he just couldn't bring himself to release it, which I always thought was horrible. It's like, I think the world needed to see it.